Okay, so I guess we'll start optimizing some stuff. So right now, if you just click play with a few cubes there, and we smash them up, everything's going to be a little bit jittery around these and stuff, right? I actually don't want to have any collision going on between all of this. So I think the first thing I want to do is make sure we don't get stuck and stuff like that, and yeah, and stuff like this happening. We'll ignore some layers. Let's start with that. I'm going to go into scripts, create a new one, C# script. I'm just going to call this ignore layer. Well, I guess I could say, yeah, let's call it that. Ignore layers. So it's going to be pretty specific for now. Let's do, just get rid of all this, and we'll say void on collision, enter. Collision, okay, that's cool. We're just going to say physics.ignore layer collision, and basically this is the first and the second. So I think we'll check in a sec, but I think it's 3. We'll check in a second. Let's just go 0 and 0. So we need 2 of these. Copy and paste. Okay, so basically when a collision happens, it's going to start ignoring what it needs to ignore. So I need to go in here and figure out which in the array these are. So just click an object and go to layers, add layer. I added one for props and player a while back. I think it was cut out of the edit, but yeah, so just add those at number 6 and number 7. Make sure your special effects is on number 3, or just remember what number it is. So perfect, 3 and 6 and 3 and 7. So that's what we'll ignore. So we'll go, my special effects layer was 3, so we'll start with this one and we'll go 6 and 7. So it'll ignore the player, it'll ignore the props. Okay, and of course, if you haven't already, change your all your prefabs here to be into props. Change the player. It'll ask you if you want to change the children, right? So we'll just do that. Sure. Then come down to your bumper sphere, change this back to default, change the attack trigger back to default, and you should be good. Okay, so now we need to go into prefabs, go to our broken crate here, and just even if they're deactivated, add this to all of them. So we'll go add component, ignore layers. Okay, good. So that'll start working for us. Let's check this out. Yeah, and it won't like bounce your player around and make it go all crazy. Maybe we need to deactivate our little attack trigger as well. Yeah, just in case the falling ones don't come down. But you see I can go across all this. It'll react with my belly. You could even create a kicker sphere if you wanted to, down at the feet. Just knock all this stuff around, but again, it won't be, it'll lose some optimization on that account. Cool. So we'll deactivate these after some time as well. There's a lot of things you can do there. You could add like a particle effect to dissolve them. You could just have them fade away, have them sink through the ground, whatever you wanted to do. So we'll see what will work for us. I might do the sink into the ground effect. I kind of like that one. I just realized, actually, we got to add a little line to our code. If we jump, he'll go right into the falling animation, and that's the way we've told it to do it. And that's my bad. Okay, one little line. I want to come into our code. Right here. If our velocity y, which is our vertical velocity, right? And that's calculated down here by our gravity. So the reason we add this right here, a -3 kind of vertical push on the player here, is that if this character controller, if you're going up and down slopes and have ramps in your game, it'll think as you're going up and down those sometimes, it'll think it's not grounded, and kind of mess up what we're trying to do. So we push down on him a little bit here while he's on the ground, so that he stays, has a little bit more gravity on those slopes, basically. So right here, we're going to ask if it's less than or equal to -1. And in that case, we'll just call the animation. We'll trigger the animation then. Okay, that should fix that. Okay, so now he should jump if we jump and not if we don't. There we go. Okay, that should patch that right up. All right, so next, I guess, let's fix that our attack trigger a little bit. So we could actually just add another coroutine. I've tried a few things actually, and I think that's what we'll do. So we'll go copy this, call this attack deactivate. Okay. Now we could call it up here and just have this like slightly beyond this one, or we could call it right here. And double click in Visual Studio to highlight full function without the parentheses there. All right, I think that'll work, and we can just do try 0.2 there. All I want to do is make sure that the falling cube above doesn't come down and hit the trigger and break 2. This needs to be false. My bad. Okay. Maybe 0.2 will be just fine. Let's see. Go hit. Doesn't break the one above. Maybe we can tone that down a bit even more. Let's try 0.12. Alright, I think that'll work out. And we'll see later when we design our whole level. So next we'll create a pretty universal script. Something pretty awesome. We'll call this deactivate object. Okay. Open that up. I just want to give myself, right away, I'll give myself a checkbox, public, bool, deactivate only, or just deactivate, whichever one you want to use. Give it a default value of false. We'll actually just keep our start function. We'll do an IEnumerator here, like a timer. So we'll give it kind of a lifetime. Let's say deactivate timer. I'll also give myself a public float called timer with a default value of 10.0, I guess. So this will deactivate each of those little pieces, but we'll deactivate the parent object, so it's not like 100 scripts. All right, so we just need that yield return new function. Wait 4 seconds is a nice one, and we'll do we'll just type timer here, so that way it'll just plug in whatever float this is. And that's all it needs, a float or an int. So in the start function, or we could say on enable. So basically when this object is enabled, that little checkbox that we use for set active, once that's enabled, and it also means once it's instantiated, so that'll work as well, we'll say start coroutine. So we'll start the timer as soon as it's alive, as soon as it's active. Deactivate timer. Okay. So we'll start the timer. Here we'll place a if statement, if just deactivate. Okay, so if this is true, we just want to deactivate the game object. So we'll say game object.setActive false. That's this game object. This will just give it a bit more utility. It'll let us use it other places. But right now we just actually want to straight up destroy those clones that are going to be popping into the world from destroying cubes. So let's say else. So this means basically otherwise this if statement. If it's not true, we'll say destroy game object, lowercase g. And there we go. That should work pretty good. So let's go back into our project. Let's go to that prefab, the broken crate. Okay, on the parent asset, let's give this the timer, the deactivate object, and we'll give it a timer of let's try 10 seconds. Sure, that's fine. And I'll leave just deactivate unchecked, so that way it'll actually destroy this game object. So after 10 seconds, it will get rid of that the broken object altogether. Whoops, I missed it. You missed it. So these all should start deactivating. Pretty cool effects here and there. And there we go, starting our optimization. And it's not gonna be reacting with everything, which is good. Okay, so we can add a nicer effect to that if we want.